over to the right. If you can, just let us know you can hear us okay. Wave hi, let us know where you're from. I always like to get a really good idea for where people are joining from, and helps us just have a little bit of conversation with you guys as we go through it. With me, I have Chad Eddy from Indium, and I'm going to be doing some intros here in a little bit, but I am going to wait just a few seconds because there is a little bit of delay. Hey, Brad, it's nice to see you joined us here. So again, I'll kind of repeat it just because there is a delay between when I speak and when I get your input in the chat box. If when you come in, please just wave hi, maybe say where you're from. It's kind of nice to see where everyone's joining from all over the country. Plus, I want to make sure we're covering everything from the West Coast to the East Coast. It's kind of my thing. I want to hit every time zone, you know. So looks like we're doing pretty well on the East Coast here. We have Florida, waiting for some California people maybe. There we go, Erica from Washington. All right, I think we're good on the time zones. It looks like we got Texas, PA. All right, cool. Georgia. Right. Hey, Dan, Louise. Looks like we're starting to fill up. I also like to kind of keep an eye on how many attendees we have. Make sure that we got everybody that was in the waiting room joins. So still have a few people joining. So hopefully everybody is ready for Christmas. I think it's okay to start putting up Christmas trees and things by now. Sad story, Chad. I have not put up my Christmas tree yet. Just saying. I know, like my kids have been begging to do it, but
we're one of those day after Thanksgiving. Got to go get the tree. That's our routine.
That's usually what we do, but I don't know. It just hasn't quite happened yet this year. It's just an odd year. It's been a crazy odd year.
That
is
true.
Steve. Hey, there's our California person, Ken. Oh, and we have Yvonne as well. So, all right. It looks like everybody has joined us from the waiting room. So I think we'll go ahead and get things rolling here. So everybody, I'm super excited to have you join us today, and I have a very special guest with us. We have Chad Eddy from Indium.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are gonna be basically Chad is gonna be sharing his story, okay, about MPS and where they have been. We're gonna get into some really cool stats. I'm gonna share some dashboard stuff and all of that kind of stuff. But Chad has such an awesome story. We have been talking with Chad for quite some time, and you know, he's a really good partner for us at Rocket Referrals. And honestly, every time Chad and I get on the phone or on a web conference, we always go off in tangents, and everybody is like, okay, Chad, where you guys need to like focus, you need to start. Then, you know, there's so many cool things to talk about. But we thought, you know what, we should have a conversation about your MPS story. And so that's why we brought Chad to share that. And I promise you, we have an outline that's going to keep me honest. I'm going to make sure that we're not going on tangents. That's right. So, but with that said, if you guys have any questions, make sure that you put them in the chat. We want today to be an interactive session. So I've seen the people come in. I recognize a lot of names that are in the chat. I have a lot of really good experts in NPS, or people that have a lot of experience with it, even in the audience today. So please post your messages in there. This is going to be a great time to ask your questions and to learn what is MPS and that kind of thing. So, and then also on that chat, there's a Q&A board. If we're not seeing your question, or we don't quite get to it, just go to the Q&A and ask it there. That way it sticks to the top, and I'll make sure to get to them. So, Chad, before we really dig into you, I wanted to, you know, talk a little bit about what NPS is. Just for the people that are a little unfamiliar with what is NPS or Net Promoter Score, I thought it'd be good to kind of get that out of the way before we dig into things too quick. So I'm going to give a quick 2 or 3 minute, you know, what is NPS, and then I'm going to ask everybody how long they've been using it, and then we'll get into yours. So Actually, you know what? I already went off topic because on my outline I have what is indium. So let me back up. Go back to Chad, and so people that aren't familiar with indium, Chad, can you kind of give us your background? You know, what your focus is, and what does indium do, and what are the problems that you guys are focused on? I'm sorry, I promised this the last time I'm going to do that.
Torey, I studied really hard to stick to our outline, and I was like, oh no, I'm not. What do I do? Yeah, Indium, we at our core, we're here to help independent agents stay independent. We're an agency network. We do that by providing access to markets, training, technology, perpetuation solutions, data, strategy, all those things that we know agents need, and we do that in the most agent-friendly way. So that's, in a nutshell, what Indium does.
Awesome, man. Thanks. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I had another screen covering my outline, and I pulled it up. I'm like, oh man, I already messed it up. All right. So before I give the intro for MPS, I actually have it in my notes to poll you guys first. So you're going to see a poll pop up. Polls are one of the funnest things about this webinar, about doing webinars. I like to kind of see, how people respond to things. So I'm going to pop a poll. And it's going to say, how long have you been using the MPS? Haven't used it, few weeks, few months. This is going to help me determine what level of detail I go into. So I'll wait just a couple of minutes while we're, a few seconds. It looks like people are responding pretty quickly here to the poll. And then we'll get into that. So awesome. So looks like we have so far about 29-30% haven't used MPS, and for the people who have, it's just a few months. Have a few veterans though, more than 2 years. We have 17% of the audience has been using it for quite some time. So that's awesome. Very good mix. So for people that are new to MPS, haven't used it before, MPS stands for the Net Promoter Score. And you've seen this question probably 100 times with other vendors and other products that you use. The question that you've seen is, how likely are you to recommend XYZ to a friend or colleague? That sometimes they say friend or family member. Usually it's friend or family member if it's a consumer type product, or friend or colleague if it's a business type product. There's usually, if they're doing it correctly anyway, there's usually a 0 to 10 score. It always seems like a 10-point score, but it's not. It's 11 because it's 0 to 10. So now once people answer these questions, it's classified into 3 different categories. You've got promoters, which are your 9s and 10s, your neutrals or passives, which are 7 or 8, and your detractors that are 0 to 6. So after this survey has been sent to people, the totals are kind of calculated, and to get the MPS score, you take the percentage of your promoters, which are your 9s and 10s, and subtract it the percentage of detractors, which are your 0 to 6. And that gives you your Net Promoter Score. So you notice the passives aren't really included in the calculation, but they sort of are, because they aren't added to the percentage of either one. So it can still reduce your score, but just your detractors reduce it by twice as much, basically. So the score can range from -100. If 100% of the people responded as detractors, your score would be -100. And if 100% of the people responded as promoters, 9s and 10s, your score would be 100. So it's a 200-point range. The reason that this works so well and why so many people have found it so useful is that it's a very simple question. And also the studies have shown that the answer to that question, or the way that it's asked, I should say, correlates very closely with customer loyalty, how long people are going to stay with you, whether or not they're going to actually recommend customers, and what their propensity to buy from you again is. So and the studies around MPS have been going on for quite some time, and it always comes back and it shows that we don't need long surveys to really indicate what someone's loyalty is. It can be just this one quick, how likely are you to recommend thing. Today isn't necessarily to dig in around the details about MPS, but I wanted to talk about kind of what it is so people are familiar with it. And we are going to kind of give you some tips and tricks on how to implement it if you haven't, before. But I thought it would be useful to cover that. So let me see. It looks like I have a couple of chat messages, so I'm going to make sure there's no questions. No questions about MPS. If you do have questions about what MPS is, then please ask them, and there we'll try and cover them too. So with that, now we're going to get into Chad's story. So I think that I've really enjoyed kind of hearing where Chad has been through his MPS story. And the cool thing that you're going to hear from Chad today is that he is going to tell you guys probably what you know about yourself, but you haven't admitted yet. And this is such a cool thing because it's just very important. MPS can tell a story. And if you're paying attention, it's going to really help you kind of go in the right direction. So, Chad, can you give us sort of the point in time that you realized, NPS, could solve a problem you had? What was it? And did you try anything before MPS to fix it?
Yeah, for sure. I joined, just for context, our company in 2014. So we had been in business about 10 years. We're Ohio based, but we were expanding into other states. And I joined, in 14, 10 years down the road, came in, and our board, who are agents, independent agents own our company. We had some really big, great ideas on where we're going to take our company. And we'd been in business 10 years, and all the typical business metrics looked great, right? Volume was great, growth was great, number of agents in our network was great. All those typical metrics all looked great. And so we had some very audacious goals, clearly stated, ready to go. What are we going to do over the next 5 years? And before we did that, we said, hey, let's do a current state assessment. Where's here before we try to go there? And so we took 90 days and we did an industry assessment. We did a competitive analysis, all those basic things. We did a SWOT analysis, and we surveyed our agents and we surveyed our customers. And part of that was I knew I had a little bit of background with NPS, and I knew I wanted that to be one of our key metrics moving forward. And so this was our chance to kind of create a baseline. I wanted to do it right. I wasn't an expert at it. I'd been exposed to it and studied it a little bit. So we actually brought in an outside person because I knew we were going to need some objectivity in the room when we did this. And because it was our first time doing it, it was, as far as I could tell, it was going to be our first time surveying our agents, especially in a while. And
what year was this, Chad? Just to kind of set some context of time frame.
Yeah, 2014.
2014. Okay, so like 6 years ago.
Been 6 years. So we brought in an outside consultant, knowing, hey, let's do this right. This was going to create a baseline for us to achieve these big, hairy, audacious goals we set for ourselves. And so we took 90 days and we did all that work and we gathered all this data. And I still remember this moment with our board, again, a group of independent agents who own the company, help us run the company. We sat in this big creative space all ready to go. How are we going to execute on these awesome plans? And we put up the results of this current state assessment. And the industry was changing faster than we anticipated and in ways we weren't ready for. The competitive analysis was more crowded than we had expected. And our SWOT analysis, we had more weaknesses than anything else on the analysis. And the survey from our carriers and our agents was the most telling part. And the net promoter score, just to be entirely transparent and lay out all our dirty laundry, we had a -12 with our agents, and we had a single digit 7 or 9 with our carriers. And we affectionately kind of refer to that moment as kind of our oh crap moment. And I remember very vividly one of our board members getting up, and as we had all these results up on the walls around us, taking down our big, hairy, audacious goals, knowing we're not going to get there from here. We needed to fix. So having that NPS, not just the score, right? And we talk about NPS, yes, it's a score, but it's more than that. And that's the art and science of NPS. It was all the feedback underlying a -12 and, you know, a not so flattering NPS from our carriers. We all just looked at that, and it was a very humbling moment. And it was also a very clarifying moment for us, because as much as everyone, you know, we have big ideas and we want to do great things, you do have to focus on what you have, and you got to get that right. And knowing our starting point was what it was, a -12 and a single digit NPS with our carriers, knowing that should have been, you know, 60s, 70s, we had a long way to go. And it was that moment, and credit to, you know, our board and the agents in the room, where we just made a commitment to our agents. From that point forward, we were going to be agent focused. Our customer experience was going to be everything to us. And our net promoter score, we needed to be better. But it wasn't about chasing a number. It was about digging into what were the underlying causes of that bad experience, because you know, as we said, we're only as good as our customers say we are. And so we needed to own that. And that was the jumping off point for what ended up being, as we say, kind of burning one company to the ground and starting a new one. And that was all around our commitment to NPS and our agents.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm curious, when you guys saw that -12, you know, in the single digit score, did you have an idea of kind of what, did you have any idea of what your score could be, or, you know, was it surprising? I mean, obviously it was surprising to you based off of what you're saying, but how surprising was it? And I guess what I'm getting at, did you guys think that you were better than what you were?
100%. I will tell you, we went through the 5 stages of grief probably 3 times in that meeting, right? So, and that what was so important about having someone objective in the room to help us, because you do take it personally. No one likes hearing how bad you are, right? Everyone's committed, everyone's working very hard. And we heard enough feedback. So anecdotally, from some of, you know, the agents in our network that I was starting to get to know early in my tenure here, I would get the feedback like, hey, you got service issues, right? You'd hear kind of those things. So we knew it wasn't going to be great. Right. But a -12 shocked us in a good way. Like I said, it was very humbling. And when I say we go through the stages of grief, you know, you get defensive, you start rationalizing, you get angry, and you got to get through that. And I think that was, as I shared with you, Torey, in some of our conversations, from that point forward, that defined our culture too. Like that was a moment of truth for us in terms of who we thought we were versus who we really were, and being accountable to that truth and what we were going to do about it. Was, you know, you look back on that, as scary as it was to see kind of where our starting point was, it was also very exciting because we knew we had work to do, but it wasn't rocket science. It was recommitting to doing the basics and committing to our customers. Yeah,
I think that at that point you really found the problem, you know, and you got a bunch of data from customers to use to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to, you know, dig in too much with this, but I want people to kind of understand what a -12 means. Basically, what that's saying is they had more detractors than they had promoters. And so in the industry, what can happen is that can have a snowball effect. You know, one detractor kind of builds another. The more detractors you have, it can snowball, and it can get, you know, it can become a problem out of control. But you guys, honestly, you caught it at a good time. Like that's a good point, and I'm glad that you did it to where you had that oh crap moment and you took it seriously. I think a lot of times people do get defensive. They say, oh, well, that's someone else's problem. It's not my problem, it's someone else's problem. And you're more in control than what you think you are if you don't get defensive and think of how you can control it instead of thinking that you're not in control.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And you know, as we say, the realization, to your point, Torey, of how did we get to a -12? Well, mathematically, it's possible. I mean, obviously the math works out that way, but you don't think that would ever happen, right? I mean, just with the volume. And we had, at the time, about 750 agents in our network, just contextually, about 750 agents in our network, about 3,500 contacts, agency staff, et cetera. So, those are real numbers. That was not a small sample size. And the reality that, as we talk about it, the detractors are those people willing to go out of their way to say bad things about you. When you just realize, and where promoters are willing to go out of their way to say good things about you. Man, we had a lot of people saying bad things about us. And then, like you said, the question is, okay, what are you going to do about it? And that was our moment of truth.
Yep. You know what I always like to think of our detractors as, they're honestly the heroes, the people that have taken the time to give you feedback on how to improve. Like that's, I mean, if someone really, really didn't like you, the worst thing they could do is not say anything,
right.
Not tell you what to do. And I think that that's a huge thing for people to say, hey, now I've got somebody here that's given me information on how I can improve.
Right.
So it's really, I think if it's your perspective on how you look at things. So just trying to give people some ideas on how they can not get defensive about it.
Yeah, you can't ignore it. Again, we're humans. We're sensitive to those things. We're proud of our work. But when someone gives you that feedback, and to your point, they go out of their way to do it, right? They're investing in your relationship, even though it's critical and sometimes it's painful to see that you're letting people down. You can't ignore it. So they're giving you something to work with, and like you said, you work your way through the emotions, and then you realize, oh, you know what? There's a problem here to fix. Let's go fix it. So,
and we're going to get more into Chad's story. It gets better. They don't stay out. But I want to answer Kim's question just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So Chad's customers are agents. Maybe you can define that a little bit more, but that's okay. A lot of the concepts we're talking about, I know we're talking to agents, they are in our audience, so your customers are policyholders, but a lot of what we're talking about are just conceptually, and the same things are going to apply. Yeah,
I would share too, to reemphasize that, because of the work we were doing, and the agents felt it, right? So while the agents are our customers, agents' customers are the insureds. And in our journey, and it's been, we're in our 6th year, the journey's not over, and there is no destination in this work. It's always a journey. Agents saw what we were doing, and they saw the correlation, and that's where we realized as a company, and a company that works with agents who also have customers, we wanted to extend this commitment to them and help them make the same improvements in their agency. And that's why we're so passionate about NPS. And it was agents coming to us going, hey, I've seen these changes you're making, like your service got better, your people are responsive, I'm getting, better results. How did you do that? And I get to tell the story, and they say, hey, can you help us do that? And that just opened the door to all sorts of opportunity for us.
And actually, that's a great segue into kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about. And that's really, making sure that we define NPS between. A lot of people think NPS is sort of the golden ticket. It's the thing that's going to solve my problem. But, I believe that NPS isn't really the solution. The solution is the change in mindset. It's becoming customer centric. It's, having a service oriented business. It's self-accountability. It's all of these things that we've been talking about that really do. And I thought of a really good analogy, knowing that we have New Year's resolutions and all that kind of thing coming up. I think that, NPS is kind of like the scale. If someone were saying, hey, I want to lose some weight, next year, and that's my New Year's resolution. NPS is the scale. It's not going to help you lose weight, but it's going to tell you how well you're doing and where you're at and kind of give you a starting place. It happens to be a really smart scale, though, because it can also say, if you're, here's where you are, and if you want to lose weight, you need to avoid eating these things, or you need to do this exercise. So it also will give you a little bit more information. It's like a scale and a personal coach, kind of at the same time. So I'm curious, when you guys first started to use NPS, how did you guys approach it? Was it the solution, or was it just a tool that's going to help you get there?
Yeah, no, it's a great analogy, because people get jammed up in the number, right? And we started with a -12, and that's a tough beginning. With the good news is tons of opportunity to improve it. And there's all sorts of discussion around the number.
Yep.
And like you said, the number is just the indicator. The question is, what are we doing to affect that as an outcome? Yep. And so for us, knowing where our starting point was, we really looked internally. And back to that SWOT analysis, we looked at our technology, we looked at our process, we looked at service level standards, which didn't exist. We looked at our team, where we set up the right way. Did we have the right people doing the right thing? So nothing went untouched in terms of figuring out what was the driver of such, I'll just say, a bad result. And the reality is we earned every bit of it. As I always tell the story, is we earned a -12, which I'd never seen before, but we earned every bit of it. So we really had to just get under the hood as a company and evaluate everything. And, on the one hand, you get an agent saying, hey, you got service issues. It's the black hole. That was, an affectionate term we kept hearing, was the black hole issue. And that became a battle cry. We turned that into, that was our sole purpose, eliminate the black hole. But what did that mean? And that meant investing in better technology. That meant we turned over our team. The reality was we needed to get to a different place, and that wasn't going to be for everyone in terms of the people we had on the team at the time. And that's not a criticism. That's just a realization that we got to do something different. We still had big, hairy, audacious goals put on the back burner until we fix this stuff. But so we changed our people, we changed our roles, we changed technology, we dug into process. Because at the end of the day, people deliver the service. We're a service provider. That's what we do. We deliver a service for agents and carriers. But the realization of we're all in this together. And when you, as an operations person, supply chain management, if information is our supply chain, you look at all the players involved. And we really had to dig deep into what was our role, what were our carriers' roles. It really enabled us to really look at, because the combination of our work resulted in some experience the agents were getting. Yep. So we couldn't ignore that either. It used to be, I used to find out when things weren't going well was when an agent would call me. That's how I learned when things weren't going well. And so an agent would call me and say, hey, I'm still waiting. And I would go into the team and we would talk through what was the example and what was the situation. And you find out everyone's waiting for somebody else. And we couldn't afford to do that. That couldn't be our way of doing business. We really had to own every piece of it, which also meant sitting with our carriers and understanding what are their service level expectations? What are our expectations? Do we have escalation points in the process if we're making a commitment to an agent? So it really just, we picked apart every part of our operation, and it really helped us make better investments in people, better investments in technology, because we want to do a good job. We want to earn our agents' loyalty. Without them, we're not in business. And so we had to make those investments to make the operation and the service we provided better.
Awesome. I think that I've been waiting for a good time to show some of the dashboards that we have in Rocket Referrals to kind of demonstrate the data that you can get from NPS. And I think now is a good time to share that. So I want to share my screen, not this one. I want to share a different screen. All right, switch. I want to do this one to start with. So hopefully everybody can see that okay. This is this is our dashboard on NPS. One of the things Rocket Referrals does for the people that are unfamiliar with Rocket Referrals, we run NPS for you, but we integrate it into all of our communications, after the fact. What you're looking at here is a dashboard for one of our demo accounts, and it kind of it shows what your current score is and kind of what the score is over time. And so, kind of thinking from Chad's situation, as they were doing, they get a -12, they want to be able to monitor things over time and kind of see as they're changing things, how is stuff improving. But even before that, though, we happen to be able to drill down and show you. And the reason that I wanted to share this actually is to talk about the team member aspect of things, because if you have one team member that's constantly mentioned in a detractor comment, that might be a really good indication that some coaching needs to happen, or maybe in a different role, or maybe a different job, right? So you said it much nicer than I think I did there. But sometimes someone is just not cut out to do service work. and they need to be moved into a different role or something. And this is a really good way to find those things. So this demo account just happens to have all promoters, but you can see when detractors are mentioned or when they come up, what person is assigned to that account. You can also see, do I have specific providers that have issues? So, this would especially be true for you, if you have, one agent that you have assigned to a certain, contract and they're having some issues with one carrier, you can go back to your carrier and say, look, you guys are the source of 90% of our detractors, and here's why. And be able to actually have those conversations.
Right.
I know you didn't have fancy tools like this at the time, and you were probably doing everything manually, but this is when Chad's talking about having those different conversations with people, the type of data that they're going through and they're looking at. Some of the things that we do in Rocket Referrals, we go a little bit deeper. We actually have some machine learning that will categorize comments and say, hey, this one, they were talking about general service, or this is a comment they were talking about support, or proactive communication. These are all things that are categories we've seen as indicators that can move NPS one way or the other. And it's important to look at things in that order. And then also specific topics and also product types. So from an agent perspective, it's important to know, are my commercial lines clients happier or not as happy as my personal lines clients? Because if you look at an NPS as a company as a whole, not every company is very flat and everybody's servicing everybody. You have different segments. So it's important to be able to drill down into that data and say, is one part of my company kind of bringing down another or up or whatever it is. So for example, these are all just custom lists that are in our account, but we can say homeowners only. I don't know if we have, we have some sample data in here, but I can view homeowners only. You can see that the score for my homeowners people are much higher than my overall company. So there's something else that's maybe bringing that down, right, in my sample. So hopefully this helps kind of give some visualizations behind, when we're talking about digging into data, what we're looking at. Chad, is there anything you think is worth me covering a little bit more, or does that help?
Yeah, I would just reinforce again, transparency around the data and the customer experience and the customer feedback internally. Our entire team rallies around NPS. We use actually Microsoft Teams as our collaboration tool. We have an NPS channel. All of our NPS results are posted daily. So just the transparency that goes with this, and to your point, a journey that a company like us went on where service was our biggest issue. Watching now the progression of, to your point of when someone was a detractor and we asked them why, right? You get the number and then you get, just tell us why you rated us, whatever it was. To see the number one reason they were a detractor was service, progress to now the number one reason they're a promoter is service.
Oh, so
to be able to track, like you said, the themes and the topics and the people. And then to your point too, companies, we share our NPS results with our companies. They're as much a part of that result as our team is. And I think they've appreciated us kind of bringing them into that fold and recognizing, to your point, is as much of a celebration when we're having a good NPS result, recognizing them and thanking them for being a part of that, but also from an accountability and transparency standpoint, when it's not so good, let's just confront the brutal facts and having this data in front of us. Even our carrier partners, I think that's a big point. To be able to bring data to them when usually they're the ones bringing data up to us, we can bring data to them and say, hey, either things are working or not working, and here's what we need to do to make it better. Data like this has been invaluable.
Yeah. Speaking of sharing companies' NPS scores, this is our Mps dashboard. And I'm not too sore about being ranked 812, but the reason I wanted to share this, which by the way, the average NPS score for a software as a service company like us is in the 30s. So I'm pretty happy about being a 74. But what I wanted to show this is because sometimes a lot of people will say, well, where do I rank? How am I compared to other people? So I guess maybe a question that's not in the outline, so sorry for this, putting you on the spot here, but what, at the time that you got that -12, did you know kind of what the industry average would be,
Yeah, we really didn't. We had no idea. We didn't need a comparison to know that that wasn't a good outcome. So we were pretty confident that that was a bad number.
Yeah.
But we really didn't know. You get some high level industry averages, and we were trying to figure out as a company, as a B2B, we consider ourselves in a B2B relationship, with us and our agents and also us and our carriers. We started to kind of focus on, okay, what are those benchmarks and where do we go from here? As an example, we said we're going to get to 50 in 5 years, not knowing if 50 was, good benchmark. We didn't know. We just said we're going to get to 50 in 5 years. But more importantly, here's how we were going to get there. And we've gotten there now. And as I said, it's a journey, not a destination. And so we gotta bring in more industry benchmarks and figure out.
It's tough to move. It's really tough to move. I mean, getting the few points at the top end of the scale are really hard to do, right? I mean, to think about it, to get 100, you cannot have a single detractor. That's just not going to, or pass it. It's just not going to happen. Like, it's very, very, very difficult. Unless you have only 2 customers, or something like that. So the other thing I wanted to share with this, or the reason I wanted to bring this up, is because you guys at the time, 6 years ago in the insurance industry, I should say, using MPS was relatively new. Not a lot of people were using it in this industry, and some were, but not very much. And so those industry benchmarks, if they were there, they weren't very accurate. Now we have a lot more data available. And one of the things we have baked in Rocket Referrals is the ability for you to literally see how you rank. So we're ranked like 812 on our platform for people that are choosing to share the data. And it happened to be, if you want to, you can even see the names of those companies if you opt in to share that as well. And the reason we do that is so that we can create a collaborative sort of world around this, and to create something in common. So if I wanted to, I could call up Carl and company and say, hey, we're ranked around the same, like, let's share some ideas on how to improve and that kind of thing. So this is a really cool thing in our platform that's available for people. But then also you can see how employees might rank over time as well. So if you're working on people on improvement, like Daniel, jumped up a lot here. So things like that are really, really neat to be able to do. And you have access to tools like this now that Chad did not have at the time, which I bet you wish you did, but it's because of people like Chad who give us feedback and give us ideas on things like, hey man, and telling these stories, like, I wish we had this, so here's how we do it. We incorporate that stuff and we can build some really, really neat things. So enough of sharing screens and that kind of thing, but hopefully people enjoy that. And I see I have a couple of questions. I'm gonna get to those here in a second. Roberto, the opt-in to share is right on your when you view the leaderboard, you click on company rank and it will say change how your name appears on this list. You just hit that link and then you can see that there. So going back to our questions, I actually want to throw up this poll real quick because I think that it's there, and then I'm going to hit the next one. So next poll, I'm curious, because we're talking about benchmarks. What do you guys think is the average MPS in the insurance industry? Is it 38, 45, 62, 70, 81, or 82? Curious where people think this is, and then I'm going to share what it actually is.
And thank you, Jason, by the way. I see a comment from Jason in the chat. I appreciate that, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
And then Kim's got a question.
The rank is our agency against other agencies, same size. So yeah, Kim, actually on the dashboard, you know what? Why don't I just share the dashboard again? Let me do this one more time. And share screen. Make sure I hit the right one. Okay. So if you want to opt in, just go to leaderboard over here on the left. If you're a Rocket Referrals customer, just go to leaderboard over here. Then you select up here which leaderboard you want to look at. So we actually have a leaderboard for company as well. Of course, I'm not ranked because I haven't sent any NPS surveys out for myself. But then you can kind of compare employees over here as well. I'm looking at just a limited time period. So I just have Daniel and Scott on here for my demo. But then you can look at global industry leaderboard. And this is where you can see how you rank in the overall industry. And then if you click this link, choose a new leaderboard participation, it will say I want to be visible, hidden, or opted out. And that's where you would be able to view all of those changes. So then some of you may have a third option in here. In fact, if you are in Indium, Indium has a third option in here, and that will rank agencies in Indium. So inside of Indium, you can kind of have a little race for NPS. So I like having that feature as well. Some of our other enterprise partners also have their own leaderboard in there too. So if you see a third option, that's what that is. I think that was, oh yeah, so the rank is against all agencies on the platform right now. Kim, we do have the ability of slicing and dicing things, but we're making sure that there's enough data inside of each segment to really be statistically significant, because one of the things you'll see with rank and how we calculate it, we're very careful around how we consider margin of error to be fair. And we want to make sure that the ranks are fair inside of those things. So I've had this poll going long enough. I'm going to close it now. Let me look at the results. So we have, most people feel that it's around 62. Looks like I have about a normal distribution of scores here. So very interesting. I did throw 38 in there just to see if we thought it would be low. And the reason is because, let me share another website with you guys. It's called myagencyrank.com. And hopefully you guys can still see this. So this website is one that we created, and it has a ton of industry stats on it, help you compare. Even if you're not a Rocket Referrals customer, you can go to compare your NPS and move this slider back and forth to kind of see where you would rank. And so at the bottom, we also have how your score ranks in other industries. And so right here, the average insurance agency in the US is 70. So it's a lot higher than carriers, by the way. However, we have seen carrier scores increase over the years. A couple of years ago, the average carrier score was in the 30s, and now we're seeing it 44. And so we're seeing that carriers are starting to take it more seriously, partly because of people like Chad who are pressuring them on these kinds of things and making an impact. Because sometimes the carrier score will impact you, your score in terms of claims and things like that. So it's really important that you are taking, your information and pushing back on carriers, because it will make an impact. We compare a couple of other things like software as a service companies and that kind of thing. Now, one of the cool things is the average NPS score of people using our system is 79. And I think that some of it is because we help people communicate with their customers in a really personal way. But another thing is people who are using Rocket Referrals really believe in customer service. I mean, they come to us because they know how important that is. So generally speaking, we just have better agents on our platform. So I think that that's a really interesting, stat just to look at these two differences here. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing that My Agency Rank. Actually, before I stop, I wanted to point out one thing. Up here are guides. So another thing, if you guys are not Rocket Referrals customers and you're looking for ways to improve your NPS, we have a whole list of things that you can do, to do that. And also, if you have a high NPS, some tips and tricks for you on how to improve your promoter. So this is a really cool website. We're actually working on one that is collaboration with Chad and Indium as well. Their story is so impactful and so positive. There's going to be a myagencyrank.com/Indium as well. We're still kind of working on it. We're going to highlight some Indium agencies and things like that on there too. So I'm really excited when we launch that. So But I had to mention it, Chad. I know that I wasn't going to show it. I wanted to mention it because I wanted people to know how committed you are to this industry, not just, you know, for improving your NPS, but what you're doing to help improve NPS for all of the agencies. So, all right, 12:45. I got 15 minutes left and a lot of questions, but the meat of what I wanted to hit, I think we've hit, right? But let's talk more about the impact of NPS and kind of what you have had. And this is a really interesting, you know, question, because I think you have such an authentic, sort of honest answer to this that people need to hear. But basically, can you tell us what has the impact of NPS been? How have you seen it impact your stats and you know your company as a whole?
Yeah, you know, as you and I talked, Torey, I'd say mostly it's helped us define who we want to be. And in that journey of, you know, abandoning an old version of who we thought we were to get to where we think we wanted to be is sort of no man's land. You kind of have no identity, which can be scary. And keeping NPS in front of us kept us guided in terms of who we wanted to be, and starting with our agents and that experience. And I keep saying agents, it can be any customer, right? Keeping that in front of us has kept us grounded. And in that journey, frankly, we've had to kind of reconcile with our agents who we are and who we aren't. And knowing that we needed to evolve back to that industry analysis and competitive analysis and where the industry was going and what we needed to do to change to remain competitive and, you know, get into the 21st century and be there for our agents required a lot of change. And frankly, some of our agents weren't up for it. And that was okay. But we had to be honest about it and be honest to where we wanted to go as a company. And so frankly, we lost some customers in that journey. And again, that was okay. We were staying true to who we wanted to be when we grew up, so to speak. But on the same token, we were trying to implement new things like NPS for agents. And that wasn't a planned thing. That was sort of a byproduct of our commitment to it. But as you can tell, like, we had to earn our reputation back. We had to apologize for the sins of our past, but also promise for, you know, better service in the future. And, you know, you get some skepticism, you get some, you know, eyeballs rolling at you like, yeah, you know, you couldn't get the basics right. Why should I now count on you for, you know, these additional things? And that's the journey we went through. And it's been really exciting. We've got some great agents in our network who have put up with us in the past. They've put up with us with all the changes we've made. And you know what? They're buying customers now. And we didn't have buying customers before. We've got buying customers now. And as much as at the core of our business is insurance, we know we also wanted to deliver training and technology and things like NPS. And but they needed to trust us. They needed to know that we could deliver on our promises. And that was a journey. And, you know, here we are 6 years later, we're still alive telling our story. So
yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, you guys have made leaps and bounds. The fact that you know, you have people spending more money with you than what they did before, I think is one of the coolest things. Is, you know, and that we also see is that as your NPS improves, the amount that people are willing to spend on you grows. You may lose some of the customers that were detractors, but what you're doing is you're finding the right fit. You're finding that product market fit that, you know what, maybe we tried too hard to get too broad of a market. And what we need to do is we need to focus on who our core customers are. I think everybody can relate on this call today that if you bring a customer on that is not your ideal customer, like they're too risky or something, that can wreak havoc. And that could be one of the reasons that you had this -12 to begin with, is that you just had people in your network that, you know, didn't or shouldn't be there. And finding that market, that's huge. That's a really, really hard thing to do. And you were able to do it using NPS. So it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, thanks. There's a great comment in the chat from Ruth. We've had 2 customers leave feedback with 7s saying, you know, they haven't had a claim yet. I think if I'm reading that right. And what do you do with that? And I would, if I may, we had a similar we've been measuring NPS for 5 years now. It is just the way we do business, and not to be lost in all this, it's a daily interaction, right? We get scores every day, and those are scores coming in from our agents, and we respond to them every day. So it becomes an ongoing interaction with your customers. We've had a couple of similar experiences. We've gotten 8s, and you reach out to the customer and say, hey, our desire is to be a 10. What do we got to do to, be better for you? And they say, no, I just don't give 9s or 10s. So, or we've had customers give us a 0 to the question of how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or a colleague, which sends us kind of all into a panic. And when we reach out to that customer, they say, I don't want to recommend you. You're our competitive advantage. Why would I want someone down the road having you? So you have to kind of interpret some of that. And, some of our reaction is, well, should we delete that score? Because it's not really a reflection of how they feel about us. Or it's more positive than maybe the score indicates. We leave the scores. We don't mess with the numbers. It's most important understanding the sentiment of the customer in the moment at the time. So there's a little bit of anomaly, and there's art to this.
That's true, because, let me give you an example. On that 0, Rocket Referrals is going to look at that, and we'll mark them as a detractor, but also we're not going to be sending them communication that you would pay for to get referrals and recommendations. If that guy is literally saying, or gal, is saying, hey, I'm not going to recommend you because you're a competitive advantage, we're not going to ask for referrals and recommendations for that person. So it's really good data to have. So I think that's really good. The other thing that I wanted to mention, especially on when you're calling your 7s and your 8s, is that what you're doing by calling them and paying attention to them is the key thing. So when you reach out to them and let them know, hey, I think James is kind of talking about this too, is that, it's important for us to understand, areas of improvement, and it shows them that you're paying attention when you don't need to. Right? You don't want to be the agent that's only paying attention during claims. And that's what people will see. It's something you have to do and not say.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a couple good questions here in the chat box. That is half the battle. And even as consumers giving responses to surveys, there's sort of or maybe it's just me and I'm just jaded, but it's like, is this really going to go anywhere? Is my feedback going to mean anything to anybody? And when they get a call within 15 minutes of getting a 7, like you said, just that experience that they know we're listening, they know we're paying attention, that it's meaningful, and we're making a call, we're going to take some action on it. I think just fundamentally as consumers, we like that we're being heard. And the reality is they've got to feel that difference somewhere down the road. It may not be immediate, but they do know that we're responding. We see it. It's important to us. So that is important. Just the fact that you're going to pick up the phone and call or respond in some way, I think makes a big difference. Someone asked a question, what is Indium's NPS now? We are hovering in the mid 50s. So in the last number of months, we've had consecutive months in the mid 50s, which is, fantastic. I will always say what we say internally, there's nothing more irrelevant than yesterday's NPS score. So, we track it daily, weekly, monthly, but every day is a new day. Even if we had a great NPS day the day before, anything could come our way. And it like I mentioned, it's a journey. We haven't arrived. Yes, we want to get into that 70 range, 75 range is ultimately where we need to be. But it's more of our commitment to this ongoing process, and we'll get there. So
absolutely. I know you will. Let me hit a couple of other questions, since we're in here. Actually, Richard had one, and he said, we've started to get some negative feedback because too many contacts were made within a year's time. How do you control that? Chad, I'm curious, what your input on that is. And then, of course, I have, my spin, of course.
Right. Well, this is the art and science of the whole process. I think general rule of thumb is no more than twice a year. So once every 180 days, as sort of a, general practice. You can also do it transactionally. You can get down to a transactional level, like the moments of truth. So defining the moments of truth in your customer journey. For an agent, that may be new business or premium change or a claim, whatever those moments of truth are, you can use those points in time, those moments of truth meaning for the customer, not for us. to trigger an NPS question. So it's a little bit of both. You try to not hit them up, too much, but I'd say twice a year as a best practice. But transactional can be good too, because those moments of truth are important, and you don't want to go 3 months down the road to find out you let somebody down.
Yep, for sure. So in Rocket Referrals, we automatically time surveys based upon product data and things that we know about them. So we're going to do our best to make sure people are getting the right number of surveys. And if their feedback was around how many pieces of communication you're contacting them with, whether it be welcome emails and other things that are not surveys, I'd be interested to know exactly what their impact, feedback is, because traditionally what we see are companies with higher NPS scores are communicating with their customers more often. So I guess one of the things to think about is you have to be careful in identifying a trend across many customers and a one-off piece. Because as much as we want you to be thoughtful and self-reflect on the things that people are saying about you, you don't want to take one piece of negative feedback from someone that says, hey, you guys are sending me way too many emails, and then reduce the number of emails that you're sending, and then you're impacting the other 99% of the people that are out there. So look for trends and things that people are saying. Don't knee-jerk react to large organization changes based upon one or two customers. Instead, maybe there's a way that you can opt that person out of a certain email campaign or something like that that's going to be more personalized solution to that person rather than organization-wide, if that makes sense. Let me see. I think, I want to get to a couple, maybe one last question here. I talked about agency morale already a little bit, but let's dig in on that a little bit more. If we were going to hit one last section, I think agency morale is probably one of the key things, because thinking about where you guys were as a -12, especially when we brought that up, I'm sure agency morale wasn't the greatest at that point, right? So I have heard how NPS can make a huge impact in terms of company culture, just from, hearing positive feedback from people like, hey, this employee did a great job, and then that's seen by the CEO and things like that that can give kudos to that person. And I'm curious, what is your thought on the impact of agency morale that NPS can have?
Yeah, I would offer making it a part of your culture is important. So the number can trigger emotions and reactions, defensiveness, elation, all that kind of good stuff. But just being accountable to the process. So having that as a core part of your just overall culture and how you do business, I think is important. Otherwise, like you said, Torey, you can start chasing numbers and reacting to things that don't really make a difference in the end. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, is it is front and center to our team all the time. And when we get a detractor response, what we always look for, and this has taken time, but this is part of our journey as a team, is recovering from that detractor. And so we as a team, it's not about reacting to getting a detractor score. It's about, who's reaching out to the agent? How did that conversation go? How are we going to either repair or, as we call, kind of service recovery in the moment? Is there an issue right now? So that becomes more of our, and that's a really positive thing. I mean, our team we rally around our NPS channel and watching posts and seeing what our NPS is for the week and comments coming in from agents and people within our culture, within our team, commenting like, oh yeah, I worked with that agent yesterday or last week. And so, that takes time, but I think even like I said, the detractor scores don't take a hit on morale. It becomes more of an opportunity for us to turn something around, and that gets everyone excited. And
yeah, I definitely think when you start to roll this out, if you're just getting going on NPS, you're going to get started, having a really good conversation with your team around how you're going to use it and what it means is important to let them know, like, hey, this is an opportunity for us to improve. And, that kind of thing is really important to do, because, you want to make sure that everyone's kind of bought into this idea to be the most successful.
Right. That's right.
Susan had one question I want to hit here. What happens when I'm trying to call people and they're not getting back to me? I have a tip for you, Susan, and then I'm curious, Chad, if you've had this, happen to you. But if you're trying to call somebody and you're not able to get a hold of them, I think that you should still send them an email. Use our system to send them a card and just say, hey, I want to let you know I got your zero. I have somebody looking at your account. And, here, if you can spot anything that you think is the issue, then mention it. Otherwise, just simply say, we are going to fix it. If you have time, give me a call, and we can talk about it and make sure this is better. At least reaching out proactively, is good. And they may get that and notice it. And that could be all that you can do or all that it helps. So I'm curious, Chad, if you've had that happen to you guys before, especially when you were, out of 12 and you said, hey, we want to get better. And people are like,
right. Yeah, it's the same. You want to do multiple touches, a combination of email and phone. We try to include, links in our email to our calendars. So, hey, we want to set up time. It's not just about, hey, I can send them an email and I'm done. So we want that live conversation. We want that feedback. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes we end up not getting a hold of people. I'll say one thing we implemented for us. We have scorecards for our agents. So we meet with our agents all the time and we show them our results together. Their NPS on us is part of their scorecard. And we show them the responses from everyone in their agency. So they don't even, as they talk within their agency, they may not be sharing their own experiences and how they're rating Indium. We play that back for them to say, hey, and we can show them the trend in that agency. So if they've got 5 people in their agency and they've been rating us for the last couple of years, we show them all that detail and we put it in front of us in terms of, hey, how are we doing for you? So we always have that touch point as well. And it gets to the person. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Awesome. I love that idea. I wonder how we can use that in Rocket Referrals. I wonder if I can help agents show their customers the feedback that they've given and maybe some things that they've done to improve it. Or
Yeah.
Man, I love chatting with you, Chad. It's awesome. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. We are at 1:00. We could probably talk forever, and I'm sure that we'll be doing another webinar with you again soon. For the people that were not able to join right away, the recording for this will be available. You're automatically going to get an email so you can revisit things. I did put a final slide up. If you're not a Rocket Referrals customer and you need help running MPS for you, we can do that. RocketReferrals.com/demo. We do a lot more than MPS, so you should definitely check us out. If you want to learn more about Indium, go indium.com and check them out. And I'm sure Chad's always up for questions. I'm certainly always up for questions. Yeah. We both really are invested in this industry and improving it, making it better for everyone. And we do that through things like this webinar and answering your questions and the feedback that you guys give today. So, Chad, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody else, thank you very much. And we'll have another one for you next month. So we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Torey. Thank you, everyone.
All right. See you, Chad. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys. Are we still on, Torey?
Yeah, just wait a couple seconds.